Sometimes you come across someone whose work doesn't really span disciplines, it weaves them together. A researcher, economist, entrepreneur, educator, policy thinker, and someone who somehow makes all that sound grounded. Today's guest is all of that and even more. So, welcome to another episode of School to Startup, brought to you by Tracxn, a private market intelligence platform that's been supporting the global startup ecosystem for over a decade now. Through our university partnerships, we work with institutions driving innovation and entrepreneurship, and this series highlights the academic leaders making that happen. I'm Harish, your host today, and joining us is Professor Jagannadha Pawan Tamvada, Professor of Entrepreneurship at Kingston Business School, where he leads the Responsible Innovation and Sustainable Entrepreneurship Hub. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your kind invitation, and hello to all of your viewers.
Great. So let's begin with your journey. What pulled you into the academia, and how did entrepreneurship and research become your thing?
My first PhD position was at IIT Delhi, and I started my PhD in artificial intelligence at the Department of Mathematics on a GATE scholarship. I had a GATE All India rank in 2002, and I started this about 23 years ago. But my heart, as I said, was set on economics, and I had to do this. And it was very clear right from the time I was in high school that I want to do my PhD in economics. So I did go to IIT Kanpur. I'm telling my entire history now. I wondered if I could go and get into the economics department there. But of course, with my mathematics background, the reception was, that not that warm as I would expect, as anyone can expect. So I started approaching professors in Europe to see if they can consider my candidature for a doctoral study with them. And quite fortunately, and I'm very grateful for this, a student of Amartya Sen invited me to come to Germany. Professor Amartya Sen, who won a Nobel Prize during my undergrad days. So I was extremely thrilled. I was honored. I did go to Germany. And given that this professor, who is not there anymore, his late Stefan Claassen, is a legendary man, he invited me there. I went to this place, but I didn't have a scholarship with him. So I was, trying to see where I can get a fellowship to support my studies. And he was also very keen on supporting me. So he did get the Göttingen University International Office to give me a scholarship. After 2 months, he said, look, we have this gentleman and we want to support him. But thankfully, I got this very prestigious fellowship from the Max Planck Institute of Economics. We just started the Department for Entrepreneurship, Growth and Public Policy in about 2003, October, November. That's when they started it. This was May, June 2004. And David Aldrich, who is a leading economist and an economist specializing in the field of small business and entrepreneurship, gave me this wonderful scholarship that allowed me to go anywhere in the world and write on any topic that I loved. So I decided to write my PhD on entrepreneurship in India. I wrote about this, I studied these large-scale databases coming from our country. The National Sample Survey Organization is a phenomenal organization that goes and collects household level data. So I wanted to see who are the people who are becoming self-employed? What exactly does entrepreneurship mean to them? And I wrote my thesis on all this. And also the Department for Small Businesses, at that time it was called the Commissioner for SMEs. He gave me very generously the entire census data that was collected in 2004, 2005 of SMEs in India. So I used those databases as a basis for my work. And I started off my PhD in the economics of entrepreneurship. And I've absolutely loved and very thankful for what I did, because very passionately I believed that entrepreneurship was a solution for our economic issues back home. This was 2005-06. That was my pitch to David Aldrich. I told him in 2004 summer that this is what I want to write on. He was completely signed on. And we have a fantastic collaborative partnership even today. And we did, that PhD together under his supervision and the supervision of Stefan Claassen. That's how I had this doctoral dissertation that was at the intersection of development economics and the newly emerging field of economics of entrepreneurship of at that time.
Very interesting. Probably you have answered my another question, but still I'll ask. You have lived and worked in India, Germany, and the UK. That's kind of a quite a mix. Was there a moment when you thought, yep, this is where I meant to be?
Wonderful question. I think I never thought I'd live in the UK. Yeah, it was, I never thought I went to Germany. And after PhD, as I said, my hill, the hill I had to climb was getting that PhD. And I thought I'll probably go to World Bank or I'll probably go to IMF, and one of these big organizations. That's how we think when we are doing our PhD. But my advisor, he asked me to consider academia in England. He said, that's a very good space. British academe. Of course, this is a place from where modern science emerged. People like Adam Smith, Isaac Newton, they were all from here. So he was undisputably correct when he said, consider Britain. But I did have a stint in America as well. I went to Harvard Business School as a visiting postdoctoral fellow right after my PhD. And of course, England gave me the lectureship, the first lectureship that I took on. And that's how I landed up here. And of course, I have built my academic career in this country.
Interesting. Quick pause for our viewers. If you're enjoying this chat, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Tracxn YouTube channel. We have got more conversation coming up with incredible guests, and we would love to have you along for that ride. So let's jump back in. What's something you're currently working on that really excites you? Maybe a research project or an initiative that feels important right now?
Yes, my research body right now looks at certain crucial entrepreneurial decision-making mechanisms. Like, are entrepreneurs more contemplative, or are they more intuitive? Are they more causal or more effectual? These are kind of decisions you see entrepreneurs taking different approaches to decision making. So one branch of my emerging research is on decision making strategies that entrepreneurs adopt. But I've always focused on growth strategies, and also what exactly do those strategies result in. When, for example, you choose a particular strategy for your firm, how exactly does that translate into firm's performance? So that is one stream that I have. But I'm also greatly fascinated, interested, and I would even say obsessed about making sure that we have a world where an opportunity is very inclusive. And this is a body of research that I'm building and I've been working on. A lot of my articles in the media and all that are focused on having inclusive mechanisms, inclusive systems, so that we can have a more broad-based approach to supporting entrepreneurs. It's not just the top 1% entrepreneurs get support. That shouldn't be the case. We see the top 1% in the news all the time, but the 99% entrepreneurs are the real contributors. They are generating tremendous amount of value. In fact, in the UK, there's the contributor of 50 to 60% of the total value added. So this is the 99% entrepreneurs. And policy making, whether we do research, whether we think about creating policies for entrepreneurs, we should ensure that the 99% are at the forefront of that agenda setting. And this is something that I'm truly, passionate about, and I want to dedicate my time and energies into supporting the 99%. And of which we have several layers, and there are certain sections of our community, of our country, of society that need extra support, and we should be there with those groups, so that we have a more inclusive world of opportunity. That opportunity should never be exclusive, and systems should not be designed in a way that they support and further exclusion of opportunity, which is a sort of a spin-off artifact of the kind of economic systems we have. So it requires a fundamental rethink in our approach, and there's something I'm truly passionate about.
Very interesting. Now, focusing on startups and students, you work at crossroads of startups, innovation, and sustainability. What are some startup trends you think students should really be paying attention to?
I mean, the landscape has dramatically changed over the last few years. In fact, if you ask the same question in 2021 or 22, the answer would have been so different to what one would give in 2025. This journey is tremendously influenced by the emergence of generative AI, which is a great tool. We cannot look at it as anything but a friend that should be deployed in the right way, in an ethical way, and that should be leveraged for its capabilities. And this is a very eminent trend which is there all around, which every country in the world is experiencing. So new startup entrepreneurs should not go by the rule books of 1960s or 1980s or even 2000s. The rule books have changed. There's a new game we are playing. This is like, you're in a football stadium and things have turned around. The rules are no more like hitting the ball in the goal, but something much beyond that. It is, if I give an analogy, it's probably we have reinvented the game as a humanity. And this is that opportunity to, as they say, this is a great leveler. This entire thing is a great leveler, unimaginably great leveler. It doesn't matter whether you go somewhere and get some great accomplishments, or if you're just there in your little, town or village, you could still achieve and do something extraordinary, because the tools have appeared suddenly out of nowhere that can allow you to create magic. And that's where I think that is a great trend that has set in. But along with that, of course, as I very strongly believe in, we cannot focus on a small set of fields. We cannot focus on tech startups. This is an obsession which is very easy for any country to get into, saying, look, this is a zone we will get into and we'll support it big time. But let's not make that same mistake. We should really once again think, how can these tools, these new emerging technologies, be useful more broadly, more widely, so that our students in our villages, in our tier 2 towns, in our, not just in metropolitan cities, but across the board, are able to use them effectively. So we need mechanisms that train them, that enable them, so that they can start being those people who can build on opportunities that are arising, and that those opportunities are becoming more broad-based.
Amazing. And we also hear a lot about building an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So what does that look like in a classroom? How do you help students actually start thinking like entrepreneurs?
This is a fantastic question. I was just talking to the newly arrived cohort of MBAs this morning. And over the last 20 years, my own pedagogy has significantly evolved. I was telling, given my economics background, I would always love going to the board and drawing a curve and putting an equation and being in love with it and trying to bring them in love with it. But now it's changed. I don't do that anymore. I mean, I do that when needed, when I have to drive a point. But now it has become more collaborative. Now it has become about them sharing their experience as much as I share mine. As a wise man said, and it is of course written in one of our scriptures, 25% of the learning happens by the individual's swadhyaya. 25% of the learning happens by the guru. 25% of the learning happens because of your peers. And 25% of the learning, life gives it by itself. So if we look at it, so the entrepreneurial mindset, the way I build it, the way I contribute, I believe, I should contribute to building that, is number one, trying out myself some entrepreneurial things, because otherwise there's no authenticity. And that's why I think one faculty member should experiment at least a little bit with actual entrepreneurship. That brings in tremendous authenticity when they come into the classroom and then say, this is my experience. I tried to create a team. This is exactly what happened. Of course, I mull over and reflect and build on theories, but in practice, this is what I've also seen. So one is that. Secondly, I basically give them a problem to start with. and say whether it's a sustainable development goal problem or some problem, and say, look, how can we pick a problem from this space? The world is full of issues that need resolution, and it is worthy of our effort. It is worthy of our effort to put our minds into picking a problem and trying to solve it. And you wouldn't be, you'd be amazed to hear how young men and women in the classroom can develop fantastic solutions, in a very short span of time, because suddenly they have discovered this time that was never there. That time that was probably allocated doing this or that, they're able to sit down focused in a team and saying, oh yes, that problem is there, how do we solve it? So a problem-based approach, an innovation-based approach, a creativity-based approach, something that is asking them to devote their mind space to something that is pressing out there, is bound to give solutions. And it is I think, I can never say this is a definitive way to build an entrepreneurial mindset, but this is one way in which they see, oh, it is all starting with spotting an opportunity, and spotting it, even a problem out there is an opportunity for a businessman. I mean, most businesses are built to solve some problem somewhere. In the process, they're adding value. So the moment they're able to give their mind space to that, they come up with fantastic solutions. And that's what we as educators, I think a lot of us do facilitate. I can't say I'm the only one. A lot of entrepreneurship educators facilitate that kind of a process, and in the process inculcate an entrepreneurial mindset, which I think is crucial.
Very interesting. Now, zooming out a bit, you have written about how universities support, innovation. If you had a magic wand and you could redesign how universities teach entrepreneurship, what's the first thing you would change?
It's a wonderful question. Universities are fundamentally a space of phenomenal opportunity for young minds, because this is where they're coming very fresh, from schools. University is basically a small temporary phase, after your school before you get into work. But this is also somehow correlated very strongly with those years of life when you are really growing in a multidimensional way. You're growing. There's an explosion of growth in your talents, in your capabilities, in your aspirations, and in what you create, and so on and so forth. So the moment we get such brilliant minds coming into, young, fresh minds, dynamic minds coming to universities, there's a great opportunity for them to understand that there's a world around them to which they belong, and that world is what they're going to enter, and it is having a lot of opportunity and a lot of issues. And how exactly does this phase of their life enable them to capture those opportunities, or to resolve those issues that the world is having at the end of their journey here, is a whole job of the university. That's what it is doing. It is enabling you to go and interact, like as I said, the 25% formula. All four aspects of those 25% are sort of getting built at universities. You are forced to learn, you're forced to listen to your prof, you're sort of trying to live with your peers. And of course, this whole experience, life is also teaching you in the process what to do, what not to do. So I think this is a learning playground. This is where you can experiment for a low cost. If you're a father of 3 children and you are, much in your middle age, it's not easy for you to go and say, look, I'll take a big experimentative move in my life or career. But when you're a young student, you are having mechanisms, you are having systems. The universities themselves are very alert to this. I mean, we have seen that in India now. We've seen that in Europe and America. There are tremendous amount of opportunities there that the universities are creating to support young minds, to support these students, and saying, come on, we are there. We will start that incubation center. Like in Kingston, we have a bright ideas, bright minds, bright ideas competition, saying, look, if you have a bright idea, we will support you, we'll fund you, we'll give that initial seed capital. So there's a lot of things that are happening at universities, although not everything is very widely spoken about. We are probably a bit modest in terms of how we conduct our business. But there's tremendous amount of support that is happening through universities. Yeah, and I've seen that across the several universities that I've worked at. And the students have preferential treatment and access to opportunity when they are, and resources when they're coming up with ideas. It's all about them being proactive. It's about them taking an initiative, and the system is willing to work with them.
Interesting. And talking about the support, you have worked on big ideas like Industry 5.0, sustainability, and AI in manufacturing. So imagining a student walks in and says, I want to build a zero waste AI powered startup. So do you get excited, or how
Absolutely.
do you take it forward?
Absolutely. I think this is a kind of real problem solving ideas we want to see from our students, and they are the future of our society. At the end of the day, we cannot deny the fact that the next generation that comes is a generation that is going to take things forward, and to enable them is our duty. So whether I'm a prof, whether an administrator based at the university, the idea and the core task is to enable our students and to ensure that they're able to accomplish what they are set on. Now, very crucially, given how our planet is, given how the resources on the planet are, there's a great need for sustainable modes of doing things, ethical ways of conducting business, and we cannot have our students think of exploitative mechanisms. There's a great scholar called Will Baumol, and he came up with something called productive, unproductive, and destructive entrepreneurship. This way, you can imagine this is, his genius of a person wrote this somewhere in the 60s. He's saying, look, entrepreneurship can be of different, you can make money in different ways. You can be enterprising and doing things, but is it all fruitful for the world around us? So when students come up with those productive ideas, when they want to do something incredible in terms of, or even very mundane, in terms of solving, resolving, and helping the world around it, I think they deserve the foremost of attention. And this should be on the foremost of their minds as well, as to how they can be positively contributing to the world around them, how they can add value in a way that the world benefits, not just them, but future generations of humanity also benefit from their initiatives.
Interesting. So I have one serious question. You have studied how religion, family, and social norms affect the entrepreneurship. So tell me honestly, like, what's the most unexpected reason someone gave you for not starting a business? Has anyone ever said something like, "My aunt thinks apps are witchcraft"?
Exactly. I do have a paper that is titled "My Mother-in-Law Doesn't Like It," and this is a sample of middle income woman in Bangladesh. Because typically the policy narrative says, give them some kind of money or resources, and they will all start up. The constraint is in finance. A lot of studies say that, and say so these are called structural barriers. Somehow ease the structural barriers, and we'll have more entrepreneurs, self-reliant, contributing to the economy. And what we found in that particular study was that these were women who had enough resources, but they would by no way go and start up or do anything. And when we asked them why exactly that's the case, they said, look, my mother-in-law, will she allow me to do this? I can't imagine. And we see this in many other contexts as well, wherein there are social norms that inhibit entrepreneurial activity. The last thing we want to do is to inhibit someone from achieving their potential. Our role should be one of enablers, facilitators, so that everyone around us can flourish and excel. Because when everyone excels, we excel as a society. So from competition, we got to move on to cooperation. We got to see ways where things can be built together. But the moment we have social structures that inhibit aspiration, that put down individual creativity, that deny opportunity, we are not helping the world around us. And I think that's the reason why it is crucial that these structures need to be dismantled, or at least understood. Their presence needs to be understood so that we can work towards it. It's not that we are the most perfect from day one. The moment we say, look, I'm just putting a mirror in front of what is out there. So the moment we see, like, for example, when I go in front of a mirror, like, for example, I've seen it, say, oh my goodness, is my tie in order? But if I don't see the mirror, I'll just be like how I am. And this is why I feel, as an academic, it is my role to just put the mirror. It's not that I'm biased towards something or against someone, or nothing like that. We are people who are here. It's a great privilege to be an academic, to be a public intellectual, and to just show the mirror to society and say, just see for yourself. If that looks good, fine. If that does not look good, probably something needs to change.
Very true. And zooming back to academia, how do you see universities and educational institutions evolving in the world of startups and innovation? Are we moving fast enough, or still stuck in the past?
I think this is a good question, a very interesting one. Institutions have institutions have systems, and whenever you have systems, they're not definitely agile. They're not fast moving. It's not like a young startup that can really change dynamically. And one of the great research works that was there in the 80s was from Nelson and Winters, who said that routines, organizational routines, and these routines actually slow things down. So incumbents are replaced by entrants, because entrants can be agile, they can be quick. Now, if you see, that is why universities have been long established institutions with long established structures, systems in place, and everything. So to expect them to change overnight is too much of an ask. We should be fair to the stakeholders around. But the universities are doing their very best to come and meet the expectations of the world around them. They're doing phenomenal job. I mean, I can speak this for a large number of universities that I see around me, the universities where I've worked. They're all being fantastic, in terms of trying to be agile. So suddenly we have this very old established institution that is suddenly saying, look, I am willing to be agile. This is happening. And this is a fantastic thing entrepreneurship has brought to table. In that way, they have made they're beginning to make universities entrepreneurial, which is why we have all these papers coming up saying the entrepreneurial university, the role of entrepreneurial university in an entrepreneurial economy. All this is happening. And if you ask me what exactly the universities can do and change in terms of supporting entrepreneurship, fundamentally, universities are about knowledge creation. This is what they're about. Whether I'm a physicist, or I'm a social scientist, or I'm a chemist, whatever discipline it is, or a geographer, my role is about creating new knowledge and telling the world about it. So my role is to be a public intellectual and tell the world about what I found. This is what I find. This is the new knowledge I'm finding, so that it can benefit the world around. That is my role. Now, in that role comes this opportunity where there are students who want to go and start up, and the economy is asking them to be agile, to move fast. So in a way, we should have universities also having an entrepreneurship cell almost in every faculty, or more centrally, something that can bring and pool people together, that can put resources for these students, so that they can go and engage in the kind of experimentation they would want. That's a starting point. We cannot have every part of the university going and running after entrepreneurship. That's too far-fetched. But at least we need to have a dedicated space where the faculty members, and for this I say even the faculty members, not just the students, even the faculty members in the process of creating new knowledge are quite capable of creating new enterprises. And the university systems should support them, rather than saying, well, this is beyond the purview of your teaching or research. We should reward faculty members who are saying, I can be entrepreneurial. I got a fantastic idea. Because if that faculty member is enabled to do that, he is going to, employ some people. He's going to come up with, an enterprise that is at the frontier, that is based on his or her research insight. So in that sense, I think over the next 2-3 decades, the universities have a lot of work to do in terms of enabling the ecosystem and enabling the players in the ecosystem.
Amazing. And what's your advice for a student who is curious about startups but isn't sure where to begin?
Experiment, be ready to fail. Don't worry about what others will think. Don't worry about what can slow you down. Be optimistic, try it. If you get it, you become a Bill Gates, that's great. If you don't, you have at least learned the lesson. With very little expense on your part, you can experiment again, and you never know, you can become a Zuckerberg. And the thing is, we have always had these great role models, like all these top American or Indian entrepreneurs, and we always bring our attention to them. But I think that's also not fair. Imagine somebody who is an entrepreneur who makes about 20 crores or 25 crores in Indian rupees, or let us say 20-25 million pounds here in the UK. That's his net, revenue or profit, whatever. Now, this entrepreneur may not be in our newspapers. He may not be in our conversation, but he's adding tremendous value. His turnover is much more than what many people who are employed as, senior managers in organizations are getting. And maybe his own profit out of it is very decent. But the point is, our focus on these big role models has sometimes stifled creativity, because people get inhibited. They say, oh my God, that's like sky, how will I reach there? I think we need to put hills in front that are climbable. We have great many entrepreneurs who are making 100 crores. It's not a bad amount of money. You're making decent amount of, you're generating decent amount of wealth. You're doing it in an ethical way. You're employing people. You're adding value. You should be celebrated. And this is the 99%. There are tremendous number of good examples that should be brought into public discourse. Our everyday entrepreneur should be at the forefront. So the students get inspired. They look at these role models and then say, good, it's not that I have to create a unicorn. Sorry, that's not the only thing. If it happens and it becomes a unicorn, very good. That is highly aspirational, and we wish you the very best. But there are opportunities all around. And in the process of chasing the unicorn, let us not ignore all the opportunities that are just there all around us to create a viable, independent, self-reliant individual and an entrepreneur.
This was incredible. From startup ecosystem to social norms, I think this conversation covered so many important pieces of entrepreneurship. A big thank you to Professor Jagannadha Pawan for being part of School to Startup. I know 20-30 minutes is really not enough to get more information or more insights from your wisdom and from your experience. But again, for all our viewers, if you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss an update from Tracxn. See you next time.